6. The torture continues for several months. Every day I'm dragged back into the blinding white laboratory and strapped to the metal table against my will. The events that come after always follow the same routine. The testing continues until I pass out, and when I come to, I'm back in this claustrophobic prison. There's nothing to do in this room except wait. Wait for my torment to start all over again. In the few moments of clarity I have where I can focus on something other than my constant agony, I think of Dr. Richter, obsessing over what he said in that strange mirrored room, how he promised no harm would come to me here. I was stupid to believe that lie. What was even more foolish was allowing myself to believe my time here would ever actually end. I'm not leaving this hellhole. I know that now. I'm just another dispensable tool to these people. My life means nothing to them, and when I eventually exhaust my usefulness, I'll be disposed of just like all the other victims before me. People don't leave the DSD, not unless they're in a body bag. My eyes trail over the puddles of liquefied mush scattered across the floor around me. Dr. Richter won't kill me, and he won't let me die. I've tried enough times to be sure of that. At first I gave in to this madness, thinking there must be an end to it, that I could survive if I just held on and didn't allow myself to give up. I know better now. When I stopped eating altogether, they just forced that upon me in the same way they force everything else, even resorting to more invasive methods to provide sustenance when all other attempts to feed me had failed. They always find a way, no matter what. There's nothing I can do to stop this. I cringe at the memory of what these people have done to me, recalling one episode in particular, the brutal recollection still vivid even through the fog of near starvation. It was a typical day, another failed experiment. Weak and worn down to my breaking point, I knew I wouldn't last much longer and I'd had enough. I then dragged my withering body into the corner beside the toilet, hiding in the camera's one blind spot. I was cowering at death's door already, and knew it wouldn't take much to push me the rest of the way. At peace with the idea of ending my life, I jammed my fingers down my throat and regurgitated what little nourishment my body was still clinging to. But somehow, Dr. Richter knew what I was doing, and as I retched, orderlies stormed into the room to stop me. One of them pinned me to the floor as another forced a tube down into my stomach. I gagged as they pumped me full of whatever it would take to keep me alive, to keep me in a physical state where they could continue to run their experiments. I attempted to scream, but I couldn't. I tried to reject the feeding tube, but I couldn't. Their hands held me down as my body convulsed, and in the end, I couldn't fight them. This method has now become a daily occurrence. My eyes flicker open and closed, fighting sleep. The floor is cool against my clammy cheek, bringing a fleeting relief to my burning skin. There's an obscene smell perfuming the air, that I'm well aware is coming from me, but I lack the energy to shower. I haven't washed in a long time now. Apart from occasionally cleaning my teeth, to spare myself from the constant rancid taste of bile and vomit. As for the rest of me, I guess I don't see the point. I'm going to die anyway. My eyes drift closed as fatigue overwhelms me. Through the haze of my wavering consciousness, a familiar beeping scratches at my eardrums, the sound so faint that for a brief second I think it's only in my head. But then the door springs open, and footsteps beat against the floor, and I realize it's real. The torment is about to happen. Again. No! I want to scream. Certainly it hasn't been a whole day already. The hands wrapping around me are rough as they peel my body off the sticky cement floor. Since I'm no longer able to support my own weight, they haul me to my feet and hold me upright, keeping a strong arm snaked around my back to brace me. In the beginning, they had to restrain me when they did this, but they don't bother anymore. They don't have to. Any fight I had has long since diminished. I narrow my eyes at the man looming over me, who pushes my head to one side and plunges a needle into the skin of my neck, his face devoid of any emotion. I know with that single vacant look that he doesn't care what happens to me here. No one does. Once claimed by the DSD, you're on your own. The injection works its way through my system, but whatever the drug is, it doesn't quite knock me out. I'm still conscious, albeit just barely. My body, on the other hand, is paralyzed from the neck down. I can't fight, run, or do anything other than feel the lingering caress of pain. The orderlies drag me out of the room and through the halls, leading me back to my place of torture. My feet burn from the chafing of my bare skin against the smooth-tiled floor, making me wonder where my shoes went. I can't recall when I last saw them. The man supporting the bulk of my weight doesn't bother to lift me and spare me this one discomfort, even though he could do so with ease. Just goes to show what they think of me here. Once again, I'm reminded of Dr. Richter's promise. No harm will come to me. If I had the strength, I'd laugh. At first, I don't notice when we enter the testing room. My head groggy from the lack of sleep, and mind delirious from the endless pain engulfing my body. My senses only sharpen when the cold metal surface of the table grazes my aching skin, snapping my brain to attention. The fear buried inside me crawls back to the surface, as what follows happens just as it did the first time. The IVs, the monitors, the group of doctors in white coats, the metal halo around my head. A whimper rolls over my lips, but I can't find the will or the energy to cry, even though that's all I want to do. Maybe because, despite how desperately I crave death, I don't want the people here to have the satisfaction of knowing they've broken me. I don't want him to have that satisfaction. Proceed, Dr. Richter says with a smile. A scream rips from my lungs as the lightning bolt cuts through my head, strike after strike, exploding inside my brain and setting my vision on fire. I grind my teeth, searching for the strength to fight through the pain, but the ceaseless assault is unbearable. There's no escaping the agony, just like there's no escaping the fact that this will eventually kill me. But when? When will this torment finally stop? Please, I beg my body. I don't care what you do, just make it stop. For a moment, the strikes come to an end. I sag as much as the halo around my head and the steel bands restraining my torso and legs allow. Gasping and gagging up the minimal contents of my stomach, sweat drenches my skin, plastering the paper-thin gown against my emaciated limbs. I blink several times to clear my blurred vision, but the room and everything in it is obscured. All I can make out are indistinct figures. A male voice enters my ears from somewhere on my right. There's been a neural oscillation of her central nervous system. I don't know what that means. I don't even care. Until, again, Dr. Richter commands. No, I try to scream, but the word is cut off in my throat by the electric current passing through the halo straight into my head. It shoots through me in repetitive jolts, disabling every part of my body and rendering my thoughts incoherent. Tears stream down my face, and I cry out with each stab. End this, I plead with myself. End this. Another stab. End this. I release a strangled scream, but the sound is swallowed by the inky darkness stretching across the laboratory, drowning the sterile white of the room until all I can see is black. When my surroundings come back into focus, I'm standing in what I think is the middle of Zone 1, looking out upon a vast scene of destruction. It's just like it was the first time I saw it this way. Every last detail is exactly the same, from the murky air right down to the debris by my feet. I turn in place, equal parts astounded and horrified by the crumbling city around me, and realize, although begrudgingly, that Dr. Richter's experiments seem to have worked. He's encouraged my brain to recreate what I saw during my exam. But what comes now that he's succeeded? What can he possibly garner from having me relive this frightening hallucination? Vision, I correct myself. It's strange to admit, but I can feel in my bones that it's true. What I'm seeing, it's the future that awaits us. A shiver passes over my skin at the crunching of footsteps in dirt, and the hairs on the back of my neck all raise, like the hackles on a growling dog. Stance rigid, I crane my head, peeking over my shoulder. A breath catches somewhere between my lungs and my throat as I meet the piercing gaze of the man standing behind me. He looks to be a few years older than me, his early 20s if I had to venture a guess. Disheveled blonde hair lay matted against his forehead, slick with dirt and sweat, and his hazel eyes are bursting with warmth, but also tinged with the unmistakable coldness of grief. Gray smudges from the ash in the air stain both his cheeks. I glance between his face and the gun in his hand, then back again, rooted to the spot by fear. Tears flood his eyes, and one breaks loose, cutting a clean line through the filth on his skin. As another tear follows, his lips move, shaping words, but the silence swallows each one. Even when I strain my ears, his voice still doesn't reach me. Although my eyes and mind are entrenched in this vision, it's as if my body and hearing are stuck back in the laboratory at the DSD. They anchor me to my horrific reality. "We can't get a clear picture, Doctor," a female voice announces from somewhere on my right.
"You have my authorization to proceed with the intravenous method we discussed earlier. Do whatever you feel is necessary. I want that picture."
A hand runs over my face, but I can't see it. I can only feel the fingers prying my eyelids apart, and the burning sensation sinking into my pupils. Screams rip from my chest, but the restraints hold me still. Bursts of static distort the stranger's face as a searing heat radiates over my eyeballs. It's as if two knife points are piercing my pupils, and no amount of begging will make my suffering end. I am at Dr. Richter's mercy, and he doesn't seem to know what that word means. More screams escape as the burning continues. A jostling movement knocks my head, and then everything jumps into sharp focus. "There, stop! We have a clear picture now." The pain ceases at once, and everything around me goes still. At a glance, my surroundings seem unchanged, apart from the sudden deafening hiss of wind, which whips back and forth around me, kicking up a fog of dust. I peer at the man through the haze, wondering if I'll be able to hear him now. But his face is a blur. Tears obscure my vision, hiding his face. "I'm sorry, Wynter," he breathes, giving his head a slight shake. I blink the moisture from my eyes as his fingers slacken, and the gun in his hand drops to the dirt with a resounding thud. "End the session," Dr. Richter commands. The pain in my eyes returns as the vision dissolves, and I fall back into welcoming darkness. Unconsciousness envelops me, but I'm shaken awake by a hand forcefully slapping my cheek. "How do you know him?" A weary breath passes through my cracked lips. "What?" My eyes inch open. Dr. Richter stands over me, his leering gaze pressing me for answers I don't have. In my peripheral vision, I take note of the silver cart positioned next to the table. 2 bloody needles lay on the tray, attached to thin tubes. "No harm will come to you," he had said. I blink, and tears stream down the sides of my face. The facial recognition server has brought up a match, a woman says from the other side of the room. The man in question is Ezra Laramie, age 22, suspected member of Phoenix. Phoenix? Dr. Richter lunges forward and grabs me roughly by the neck. How do you know him? He asks again, yelling this time. I don't, I cry, my voice feeble and raspy. He glares at me, searching my eyes for a lie, then straightens and releases his deadly grip on my throat. Exhaling through his nose, he takes a step back. You will, he promises, his tone lethal. When he snaps his fingers, orderlies appear at my side as if popping out of thin air. Take the subject back to her quarters, Dr. Richter instructs them. The orderlies unclip the restraints and raise the halo, then lower my trembling body from the sweat-drenched table. As they drag me toward the door, showing no compassion or mercy in how they handle me, my unfocused gaze creeps back toward Dr. Richter. Contact the authorities, he barks at a pink-faced older man, who jumps and runs from the room. I want a red alert sent out on the fugitive. I don't understand why he's so angry. What's caused this reaction in him? Why does he want the man I saw arrested? Is it because they think he's in Phoenix? Or is there another reason? I raise my head, releasing a single strained word. Why? But he doesn't hear me, and within seconds, I'm once again surrounded by darkness.